Today, we're diving deep into N.H. Kleinbaum's powerful novelization, Dead Poets Society. This story, set in the rigid confines of Welton Academy, explores the clash between tradition and a revolutionary new approach to life and learning. The scene opens inside Welton's stone chapel, nestled in the remote Vermont hills. Over 300 boys, clad in academy blazers, sit surrounded by proud parents. Bagpipes sound as a robed elderly man lights a candle, leading a procession of students carrying banners, robed teachers, and alumni into the venerable chapel. Headmaster Gale Nolan, a husky man in his 60s, watches expectantly. He declares, pointing dramatically at the candle, "The light of knowledge." The audience applauds politely. Nolan intones, "The light of knowledge shall be passed from old to young." Each boy lights the candle of the student next to him. He then reminds everyone this year, 1959, marks Welton Academy's 100th anniversary, noting it was founded in 1859. He bellows, "Gentlemen, what are the 4 pillars?" The boys around 16-year-old Todd Anderson, one of the few without a blazer, shout in unison, "Tradition, honor, discipline, excellence." Todd, with an unhappy, angry face, watches silently. Nolan praises Welton's success, noting over 75% of graduates go to Ivy League schools. He then directs his attention to new students, emphasizing the 4 pillars are the key to their success. Richard Cameron, George Hopkins, Knox Overstreet, and Neil Perry each recite the meaning of a pillar. Neil, with a breast pocket full of achievement pins, responds to "Excellence, Mr. Perry," with a loud, rote monotone. "Excellence is the result of hard work. Excellence is the key to all success, in school and everywhere." His unsmiling father sits stony-eyed beside him, offering no acknowledgement. Nolan introduces the new English teacher, Mr. John Keating, a Welton Honours graduate who taught at Chester School in London. Neil Parry's father eyes Keating with suspicion. After the ceremony, where the oldest living graduate, Alexander Carmichael Jr., class of 1886, mumbles a few words, parents and sons say their goodbyes. Charlie Dalton gets a hug, Knox Overstreet a squeeze. Neil's father adjusts his son's achievement pins. Todd Anderson stands alone, his parents chatting nearby, oblivious to his discomfort. No one approaches Todd, reminding him he has big shoes to fill, as his brother Jeffrey was one of Welton's best. Todd faintly replies, "Thank you, sir." No one moves on, stopping with Mr. Perry and Neil. "We're expecting great things of you, Mr. Perry," the dean says. Neil's father interjects, "He won't disappoint us, right, Neil?" Neil manages, "I'll do my best, sir." As the parents drive away, leaving the boys in their new, isolated home, some cry. "I want to go home," one boy wails. The junior class hurries through the dorms. Dr. Hager calls out names for a meeting in Headmaster Nolan's office: Overstreet, Perry, Dalton, Anderson, Cameron. Nolan briefly smiles, giving his hunting dog a snack, while the boys stand awkwardly. He explains that extracurriculars are taken as seriously as classwork, noting assignments for the listed boys. Todd tries to request rowing instead of soccer, but Nolan dismisses his barely audible protest, assigning him soccer. Later, Neil approaches Todd. "I hear we're going to be roommates. I'm Neil Perry." Todd softly replies, "Todd Anderson." Todd explains his parents wanted him at Welton, but his grades weren't good enough initially, forcing him to attend Ballincrest first. Neil laughs. "Well, you've won the booby prize. Don't expect to like it here." Todd responds, "I don't already." Richard Cameron, a fellow student, makes a snide remark about Todd being stiff and ducks out. Neil tells Todd not to mind Cameron, calling him a jerk. Knox, Charlie, and Stephen Meeks arrive. Charlie jokes about Neil doing summer school. Neil admits it was chemistry, his father's idea. The boys discuss forming a study group, including Cameron if Neil wants. As Todd unpacks, Stephen Meeks introduces himself. Knox and Charlie also greet him. Neil mentions Todd is Jeffrey Anderson's brother, prompting recognition from Charlie. "Well, welcome to Helton," Meeks quips. Suddenly, Neil's father walks in. Neil stammers, "Father, I thought you'd left." Mr. Perry briskly informs Neil he's taking too many extracurriculars and has spoken to Mr. Nolan. Neil is to be taken off the school annual next year. "But, Father, I'm the assistant editor," Neil protests. Mr. Perry's eyes glare, silencing Neil. Then he points for Neil to leave the room. Outside, Mr. Perry hisses, "I will not be disputed in public. You understand me?" Neil tries to explain, but his father cuts him off. "When you're finished medical school and you're on your own, you can do as you please. Until then, you will listen to me." Neil, defeated, says, "Yes, sir. I'm sorry." His father reminds him, "You know what this means to your mother, don't you?" Neil agrees. Feeling overwhelmed with frustration and anger, Neil returns to his room. Charlie asks Neil why he never stands up to his father. Knox adds, "And why don't you just tell him off? It couldn't get any worse." Neil sneers, "Like you tell your parents off, Mr. Future Lawyer and Mr. Future Banker." Neil rips an achievement pin from his blazer and hurls it. The boys sit glumly. Charlie invites Todd to their study group, and Todd hesitantly agrees to join for history. Neil sits with Todd later asking, "So what do you think of my father?" Todd softly replies, "I'll take him over mine." Neil's shocked, then tells Todd, "If you're gonna make it around here, you've got to speak up. The meek might inherit the earth, but they don't get into Harvard, know what I mean?" Neil suddenly shouts, "The bastard!" jabbing his thumb with the pen, drawing blood, and he hurls the pen against the wall. The first day of class dawns, and chemistry textbooks are assigned, and 20 problems from Chapter 1 are due tomorrow. Charlie and Knox exchange dismayed glances. Latin with Mr. McAllister is all about declining nouns, with a test looming. Math with Dr. Hagar demands precision and threatens grade penalties for missed homework. The boys are crushed by the workload. Finally, they enter English. Mr. Keating sits staring out the window. After a moment, he stands, picks up a yardstick, and strolls among them. He stops, looks at Todd, then Neil, and shouts, "Ha!" He strides to the front, leaps onto his desk, and recites, "Oh, Captain, my Captain!" He asks who knows it, but no one replies. Keating explains it's Walt Whitman about Abraham Lincoln. He permits them to call him either Mr. Keating or, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." Keating tells them he was a student here, but not as charismatic then. He instructs them to get their textbooks and meet him in the honor room. There, amidst class pictures and trophies, he tells Mr. Pitts to open to page 542 and read, "To the virgins to make much of time." The class chuckles. Pitts reads the first stanza. Keating repeats, "Gather ye rosebuds while ye may." Then he asks if anyone knows Carpe Diem. Meeks, the Latin scholar, correctly answers, "Seize the day." Keating, his voice growing intense, explains the poem's urgency. "It's because we're food for worms, lads, because we're only going to experience a limited number of springs, summers, and falls. One day, hard as it is to believe, each and every one of us is going to stop breathing, turn cold, and die." He dramatically tells them to stand and peruse the faces of former students in the old class pictures. He asks, did most of them not wait until it was too late before making their lives into even one iota of what they were capable of? In chasing the almighty deity of success, did they not squander their boyhood dreams? Most of those gentlemen are fertilizing daffodils now. He urges them to lean in, to hear the whispers of the past. "Carpe diem," Keating whispers loudly. "Seize the day. Make your lives extraordinary." The bell rings, interrupting their trance. Pitts calls it weird, but Neil says but different. Knox adds spooky. Cameron, confused, asks if they'll be tested on it. Charlie retorts, "Don't you get anything?" After lunch, during gym class, the gym master calls out, Okay, gentlemen, we're going to make something of those bodies yet. The boys groan and jog. Knox receives praise for his pacing. Later in the shower, Pitts gasps, "I'm going to die. That guy should head a military school." Meeks suggests a study group, and most agree except Knox, who has dinner at the Danburys. Todd sits silently, pulling up his sock. Neil, sitting next to him, asks, "A penny for your thoughts?" Todd shakes his head. Not even worth that much. Neil invites him to the study group, but Todd opts for history. He returns to the dorm, looks at the sprawling campus, and sighs, "It's big, but it's so small here." He scribbles "Seize the day" in big letters, then rips out the page and throws it away. Knox Overstreet arrives at the Danburys, a prominent family. He sees a beautiful girl wearing a tennis skirt who turns out to be Chris Noel. He's instantly captivated. Her friend Ginny Danbury is present, but Knox's eyes are fixated on Chris. Chet Danbury, Chris's boyfriend, and the Danbury son arrives and leaves with Chris for a party using his father's Buick, after a slight argument about borrowing it. Knox is left heartbroken and jealous. 2 hours later, a shell-shocked Knox stumbles into the dorm lobby where his friends are studying math. He wails, "I just met the most beautiful girl I have ever seen in my life." He laments that she's practically engaged to Chet Danbury. Pitts sarcastically says, "Too bad." He corrects him, "It's a tragedy." The boys advise him to forget her, but Knox is determined. He drops to his knees, begging Pitts to help him figure out how to win her. Pitts suggests he's already on a tangent, half joking about Trig. Knox is later encouraged by the idea of seizing the day to win Chris. The next morning, Keating's class begins with Neil reading from the Pritchard textbook on understanding poetry, which offers a scientific, quantifiable method for evaluating poems. As Neil reads, Keating draws a graph on the board, demonstrating how a Shakespearean sonnet would overwhelm a Byron poem based on perfection and importance. When Neil finishes, Keating grabs his own throat and screams, "Ugh! Refuse! Garbage! Pus! Rip it out of your books! Go on, rip out the entire page!" The class laughs and snickers as they tear out the page. Mr. McAllister, the Latin teacher, alarmed, peeks in, then backs out when he sees Keating with the trash can. Keating jumps into the trash can, stomping it. He cries, "This is battle, boys! War! You are souls in a critical juncture. Either you will succumb to the will of academic hoi polloi and the fruit will die on the vine, or you will triumph as individuals." He promises they'll learn what the school wants, but also a great deal more. He explains hoi polloi, then slams his hand on the wall, stating, "One reads poetry because he is a member of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, banking, these are necessary to sustain life. But poetry, romance, love, beauty, these are what we stay alive for." He quotes Whitman that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. He then asks, "What will your verse be?" He shifts the mood, telling them to open their text to Wordsworth. Later, McAllister tells Keating that encouraging free thinkers is risky. "Show me the heart unfettered by foolish dreams, and I'll show you a happy man," McAllister says, believing in realism over artistic pursuits. Neil excitedly reveals he found Keating's senior annual in the library, listing him as Thigh Man, Dead Poet Society. The boys are curious. Nolan approaches, asking about Keating, calling him a Rhodes Scholar. After Nolan leaves, Neil plans a little research. Later, he calls after Keating, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," and asks about the Dead Poet Society. Keating's face reddens, then he regains composure. He whispers, "A secret organization?" I doubt the reaction would be favorable. He asks, "Can you boys keep a secret?" They nod instantly. Keating explains the Dead Poets was a society dedicated to sucking the marrow out of life. He tells them they met in an old cave, reading Shelley, Thoreau, Whitman, and their own verse. When Knox asks if it was just a bunch of guys sitting around reading poetry, Keating corrects him, smiling. "Both sexes participated, Mr. Overstreet. We didn't simply read. We let it drip from our tongues like honey. Women swooned. Spirits soared. Gods were created, gentlemen." He clarifies the name meant to join the organization you had to be dead, and living members were pledges. The last meeting was 15 years ago. As Keating walks away, Neil excitedly says, "I say we go tonight. Everybody in?" Cameron expresses concern about demerits, but Charlie tells him not to come if he's worried. The boys agree to go, including Todd, after Neil convinces him he doesn't have to read, just listen. That evening, Neil finds Keating's old poetry anthology on his desk, with J. Keating and Dead Poets inscribed inside. He skims the yellowed pages. Hours later, bundled in winter gear, the boys meet at a maple tree. They're startled by the school's hunting dog, which Pitts distracts with cookies. They cross the campus under a starry sky. Todd complains of the cold as they search for the cave in an eerie pine forest. Charlie shouts, "Yeah, I'm a dead poet," having found the cave. "This is it, boys. We're home." Inside the cave, they light a fire. Neil solemnly reconvenes the Welton chapter of the Dead Poets Society, assigning Todd to keep minutes as he prefers not to read. Neil then reads Thoreau's traditional opening message. "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life." Charlie interrupts to second that, while Neil skips sections. Knox reads about advancing confidently towards dreams, declaring his desire for success with Chris. Charlie reads a humorous love poem about one dead drunk for another. Pitts giggles reading John Dryden. Todd freezes when the book is passed to him, but Neil quickly takes it. Charlie reads a bold love poem for Tina, prompting ooh and ah. Cameron reads O'Shaughnessy's The Music Makers, speaking of dreamers and movers. Meeks reads Henley's Invictus, declaring his unconquerable soul. Knox reads a love poem about Chris. Neil then reads Tennyson's Ulysses. "Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield." The boys are touched. Then Pitts pounds out a Congo rhythm from Vachel Lindsay's The Congo, leading them in a wild, imaginative dance out into the forest. Back on campus, Pitts says, "Back to reality," Neil sighs, or something. The next day in Keating's class, he talks about language being invented to woo women. He then jumps on his desk, urging them to look at things differently. He states, "We must constantly force ourselves to look at things differently." He challenges them to find their own voice and risk walking new ground. He assigns them all to write and deliver an original poem. Keating uses slide projectors showing provocative images to test their concentration while they take a quiz. Later, Knox sees Chris, Noel, embracing Chet. Neil, full of excitement, tells Todd he's found what he wants to do. Act! He's trying out for Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream at Henley Hall, defying his father. "Carpe diem, Todd!" he exclaims. Todd, worried about his own shyness, initially hesitates about joining the Dead Poets Society and reading aloud, but Neil convinces him he can just listen. Todd reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Todd later has a powerful, improvisational poetry reading encouraged by Keating's barbaric yawp. At a Dead Poets Society meeting in the cave, Knox laments his love for Chris. Neil, nervous, heads off to tryouts. Charlie declares the cave the Charles Dalton Cave for passionate experimentation, though Meeks objects, and Knox later brings Chris to the party, where Knox gets beaten up by Chet. Charlie, now calling himself Nawanda, introduces Gloria and Tina to the pledge class and publishes an article demanding girls be admitted to Welton, risking expulsion. Later that night, Todd, Neil, Cameron, Pitts, and Meeks sit around a fire in the cave when Charlie and two older girls, Gloria and Tina, arrive, and Charlie recites poetry to them, much to the envy of the other boys. That night, Neil cycles to Henley Hall for play rehearsal, enjoying his role as Puck. Upon returning to Welton, he finds his father waiting. Mr. Perry barks, "Neil, you were going to quit this ridiculous play immediately." Neil protests, but his father is furious, accusing him of deception. "You made a liar out of me, Neil. Now you will go to rehearsal tomorrow and tell them you are quitting." Neil pleads, explaining the performance is tomorrow, but his father is adamant. "I don't care if the world is coming to an end tomorrow night. You are through with that play." Neil can only force out, "Yes, sir." His father reminds him of the sacrifices made. Neil stands, then pounds his desk in silent rage and tears. Later that evening, the boys notice Neil's distress after a visit from his father, and they insist he talk to Mr. Keating. They find Keating's room unlocked. Charlie finds a framed picture of a beautiful girl named Jessica and a half-written letter reading aloud to "My darling Jessica." Keating enters, takes the letter, and comments, "A woman is a cathedral, boys. Worship one at every chance you get." Neil then tells Keating his father is making him quit the play. "Acting is everything to me, Mr. Keating." Keating gently observes, "Then you're playing a part for him, too, aren't you?" Keating advises Neil to talk to his father, to prove his passion and commitment. Neil worries his father will dismiss it as a whim. Keating challenges him, "If it's more than a whim, prove it to him." He reminds Neil soon he'll be 18. Neil leaves to decide what to do. The other boys head to the cave. Knox furiously works on a love poem for Chris. Cameron studies. Pitts carves a quotation. Knox considers reading his poem to Chris, believing if it worked for Nuwanda, it could work for him too. The next morning, Knox, bundled against the snow, cycles to Ridgeway High. He finds Chris by her locker and, despite her protests about Chet, insists on apologizing and gives her wilted flowers and his poem. She refuses them. He follows her into her classroom, startling the teacher, and reads the poem aloud. Chris, embarrassed, covers her face as Knox declares, "I love you, Chris," then leaves the flowers and poem on her desk and walks out. Knox, triumphant, later tells his friends he read the poem but doesn't know her reaction. Later, Neil lies to Keating, saying his father agreed to let him act as long as his grades are good. Keating, puzzled, watches Neil run off. Knox arrives back at Welton. The boys prepare for the play. Charlie, now calling himself Nuwanda, paints a red lightning bolt on his chest, an Indian warrior symbol for virility. Knox, seeing Chris, ushers her out to talk. Knox and Chris argue. She's furious about his public display and Chet's anger. Knox insists, "But I love you." She asks, "How can you love me when you don't know me?" He replies, "From the first time I saw you, I knew you had a wonderful soul." He convinces her to come to the play with him, promising dead poet's honor that if she doesn't like him afterwards, he'll leave her alone. She reluctantly agrees. At Henley Hall, Neil delivers a magnificent performance as Puck. His friends cheer him on. Todd, mouthing the lines, silently supports him. Suddenly, Neil spots his father standing at the back of the auditorium. His pulse quickens. During the curtain call, Neil's friends cheer wildly. Charlie praises Ginny's performance. Knox holds Chris's hand. As Neil takes his bows, his father pulls him away. Keating tries to intervene, but Mr. Perry shouts, "You, keep away from him." Neil is let out like a prisoner. Back at home, Mr. Perry coldly informs Neil he's being withdrawn from Welton and sent to Braden Military School, then Harvard, to become a doctor. Neil pleads, "Father, that's 10 more years. Don't you see that's a lifetime?" His father shouts he won't let Neil squander opportunities. His mother remains silent. Neil is left alone, emotionally drained. That night, Neil takes his own life, using his father's revolver. The next morning, Charlie, Knox, and Meeks deliver the devastating news to Todd. "Todd, Neil's dead. He shot himself." Todd screams in anguish, running to the bathroom to vomit. He cries, "Someone has to know. It was his father. Neil wouldn't kill himself. He loved living." He insists, even if Mr. Perry didn't shoot him, he killed him. They have to know that. Neil's funeral is held. The dead poets carry his coffin. Headmaster Nolan announces a thorough inquiry demanding cooperation. The boys later learn Cameron has finked on the Dead Poets Society, blaming Keating. Charlie is enraged, attacking Cameron. Cameron, grinning, tells them they've just signed their expulsion papers and that Keating is the scapegoat, stating if it wasn't for him, Neil would be cozied up in his room right now, studying his chemistry and dreaming of being called doctor. Todd shouts, "That's not true. Mr. Keating didn't tell Neil what to do. Neil loved acting." Cameron shrugs him off. The other boys are rounded up by Dr. Hager. Meeks and Knox are brought to Nolan's office. Todd is also summoned. His parents are present, grim-faced. Nolan presents a document claiming Keating encouraged reckless behavior and Neil's acting obsession against his parents' wishes, directly leading to Neil's death. Nolan orders Todd to sign the document. Todd, hands shaking, asks what will happen to Mr. Keating. Nolan explains, "We will see to it that Mr. Keating will never teach again." Todd's father demands he sign. His mother pleads. Todd cries, "But teaching is his life. It means everything to him." His father picks up the pen. Todd shakes his head. "No, I won't sign it." Nolan threatens disciplinary probation and expulsion, but Todd stands firm. "I won't sign," he says softly. Meanwhile, Keating attempts to leave Welton. The next day, Keating prepares to leave Welton. In English class, Nolan takes over. He orders them to read the Pritchard textbook. Cameron reports the pages are ripped out of all the books. Nolan, frustrated, hands Cameron his own book. Just then, Keating walks in to collect his personal belongings. Todd, unable to control himself, cries out, "Mr. Keating, they made everybody sign it." Nolan tries to silence Todd, but Todd insists, "It's true. You have to believe me." Keating softly replies, "I believe you, Todd." Nolan, enraged, shouts at Keating to leave. As Keating turns to go, Todd jumps onto his desk and, fighting back tears, cries out, "Oh, Captain, my Captain!" Nolan yells at him to sit down, but then Knox stands on his desk, followed by Meeks, Pitts, and other boys, one by one. They stand in silent, powerful salute to Mr. Keating. Keating, overwhelmed with emotion, thanks them and walks out, leaving them standing on their desks, a final act of defiance and tribute. If you found this story compelling, share it with someone who appreciates narratives of rebellion and individuality.